FAMU and the Orange Blossom Classic just makes more sense when they're together. That's why I'm glad after a 1-year hiatus, the two sides were able to connect again. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor, current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day, every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S, where you can catch some of my Shrine Bowl coverage and my Shrine Bowl interviews, mainly the one with Chennis Berry that relates to the HBCU world. Now, all of that being said, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Texas Southern women's basketball. I think that they've done enough through the first 8 games of SWAC women's basketball play to say that they've earned top dog status. In segment 2, it'll be the second part of our doubleheader with the Rattlers. This time around basketball, Patrick Crarey is elevating FAMU men's basketball in year 1 to a point where we have to start having a conversation of how he will be treated in the offseason. Premature a little bit, but not too much. But let's kick this thing off with something that I'm very happy to see, which is the fact that FAMU is returning to the Orange Blossom Classic. I love that. I think that FAMU and the Orange Blossom Classic simply make more sense when they're together. It's a thing that I understand that the Orange Blossom Classic and FAMU are technically 2 different entities. I understand it's not FAMU sponsors the Orange Blossom Classic. It's not that, but at the same time, it kind of is, because quite frankly, until last year's edition, every single Orange Blossom Classic had one constant, and that was the Florida A&M Rattlers. And for me, the divorce, though it was short, the divorce was it was disappointing. And at the same time, I will say this, I was happy that the OBC decided we're going to keep this thing going. And I enjoyed the Central versus Alabama State game. North Carolina Central versus Alabama State provided me with entertaining football. It was a matchup coming into the season that was a blockbuster matchup. I thought that it had all of the qualities when you're talking about purely gameplay that you would want. Now, was it lucrative? I don't know. That's not, a lot of these business ventures aren't really something that I'm interested in finding the numbers. Like that doesn't really mean too much to me. I'll be honest with you. So I can't sit here and tell you I was looking at how much money that Alabama State, North Carolina Central was generating. But I'll say this, those figures FAMU's aware of, Orange Blossom Classic is aware of, and many of you are probably aware of them as well, because you probably care. That's just not my personal interest, right? That's not my lane. But I can guarantee you that however that game played out monetarily definitely impacted how these two sides came to the negotiation table. Let me give you examples. If FAMU stepped away, because there was probably some money involved in it as far as why they stepped away. But let's say that FAMU's looking at, or the Orange Blossom Classic is looking at last year's game and say, oh, we did not make any money. Well, now the payout might be a little bit bigger for FAMU. They might be more willing to give into the financial demands that FAMU could have wanted. And mind you, all of this is speculation. And I feel like I remember hearing that it was some sort of monetary disagreement between the sides. So if they didn't make too much money off of Central versus Bama State, then now you're looking at, yeah, FAMU, we can give you what you want because we know we're going to make more money by you being in this event. But now if they did make a certain amount of money, it could be a slight increase, but you're less likely to give into demands. It's just a, hey, we still feel like you guys are synonymous. We always wanted you in this game. Let's figure out something to do. So I think last year's matchup between North Carolina Central and Alabama State would play a huge part in how these two entities approached, right? Is how they approached the negotiation table, excuse me. But them going on their own also opens the door for them to go on their own again. If you said we don't need FAMU in 2024, you may not need FAMU in 2026 or 27, 28, and so on and so forth. The point is, if this is not a permanent change, we have seen that the Orange Blossom Classic is willing to deviate and go get other people. And though I would be disappointed to see FAMU not be a part of this game, I do believe that having this be a game that continues year in and year out is still something that we should appreciate. That's me personally. All in all, FAMU's supposed to be here, right? Like, let's not have to do another North Carolina Central versus Alabama State. Let's not do that again. FAMU is supposed to be in the Orange Blossom Classic. I'm glad that those two sides got whatever differences they had in 2023, 2024. I'm glad they got that figured out because the Rattlers, it's their event. I say it's not FAMU sponsored, it's not FAMU ran, but at the end of the day, there's only one team that had been in every game until last year, and it was FAMU. It wasn't just a Florida thing. It was not like, oh, either FAMU or Bethune-Cookman's going to be here. It wasn't we're going to pull a bunch of HBCUs and most frequently FAMU is going to be one of them. No, this was every single year that they had it. FAMU was here. So if I say it feels right, that's because of that. You know, that's just me personally. That's my personal opinion. So, who is FAMU playing? FAMU's playing the Howard Bison. And I love this too, because it's another high profile matchup. It's another matchup that people are going to be running to. And not only is it a high profile matchup in that capacity, it's also one between two of the bigger HBCUs that you'll have out. FAMU versus Howard is going to bring the freaking alum out. These are two fan bases, two alum bases that are widespread. You're in Florida, so it's not hard to get the Rattler alum base. But Howard, they pop out, they show love, they go everywhere, right? Like, I think that the matchup between the rematch of a Celebration Bowl adds a little something to this. It wasn't that long ago, though both teams had a lull after it. So if you want to paint a storyline, you have FAMU and Howard meeting up again for the first time after the Celebration Bowl. This time it'll be in the Orange Blossom Classic, technically a neutral site, but we know they're really going to FAMU country. Can Howard make up for their Celebration Bowl loss? Both of these teams are coming off of a bad season. Who's going to start their bounce back in the right way? It's only right that they face each other. I think that that's the way that you come in and you sell this. I think that's the way you sell this. It's a two-part return. As FAMU is coming back to the Orange Blossom Classic, that has to be the lead storyline. The Rattlers are coming home, the place where they're always supposed to be. FAMU and the Orange Blossom Classic, they took a year apart, but they are always going to be synonymous. And then the second selling point is the fact that FAMU versus Howard was a Celebration Bowl matchup just a year prior. In December of 2023, these two teams were duking it out to see who could be the best team in Black college football. Now they're coming off of rough years to try to regain their crown in their own respective conferences. That's me, though. I hope that got you going. I hope that made you want to go to the game. I hope them selling you to the Orange Blossom Classic. Holla at your boy. But as we push forward, let's keep it in Rattler Nation. Patrick Crarey, he's elevating FAMU men's basketball. And to me, it's forcing the hand for a very difficult conversation. It's a tad bit premature, but I'm going to tell you why it's on my mind as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And Game Time is the official and only place that I would ever go for any ticket needs. And I don't care if you're trying to go to some celebration locally. I don't care if you're trying to go to a basketball game, if you're trying to go to a football game. I don't care if you're trying to go, maybe you're trying to go to the Senior Bowl and you're in Mobile. Maybe you're trying to go to the Shrine Bowl and you're in Arlington, because the Shrine Bowl is actually tonight. So if you're in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington area, you can go ahead and check this out. DFW AMA, go ahead and check those things out. Maybe you're not in Texas. Maybe you're in Alabama. Maybe you're not in either one of these. You just want to go to a local event, concert, ballet, comedy show. These things are everywhere. It doesn't have to be somewhere where sports are prevalent in your hometown. All you have to do is go to Game Time. Download the Game Time app. If you don't want to go to the website, then use the code Locked On College and you get $20 off your first purchase. Doesn't have to be sports. It can be anything in between. It's just on you to look in your local area. Go to Game Time, download the app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On today for the biggest and best stories in all of sports, no matter what the sport is. Go to Locked On today wherever you listen to your podcast to enjoy. Patrick Crarey has already succeeded in his first year at FAMU. But let me tell you why I believe it's setting up to have a very interesting conversation around Crarey in the offseason. So I'm going to take you back. The last major decision that I personally remember Tiffany Dawn Sykes making was hiring Patrick Crarey, the men's basketball coach. But there was a whole lot of controversy because after she was fired, I believe this was after she was fired, but I don't remember anybody really talking about it before that. But after she was fired, they said, let's look at this contract that they gave her. Let's look at this contract that they gave, or excuse me, that they gave him, excuse me. And they said, I don't really believe in it. Okay, let me back it up. Because I think that I'm skipping some very important parts. Tiffany Dawn Sykes, obviously former athletic director of FAMU. She hired the now men's basketball coach right before she was out the door, which was a major hire. She wanted to give him a multi-year contract. I think they had even agreed, but maybe it wasn't finalized. And then once she was out the door, still wasn't finalized. They go ahead and go to Crarey and said, listen, we're going to review this contract. They come out and say, we don't really believe in a 3-year contract for you. You get 1 season. 1 season. I always said that wasn't fair, but he gets 1 season. Well, this is his 1 year. After this, he is technically a free agent. He could hit the door if he wanted to. You have to make a decision on whether or not you believe in him. And I think right now we're getting into the point why 1-year contracts were dangerous. So as you're looking at it, the board of trustees decided, no, we don't want to give Patrick Crarey a multi-year deal. Instead, we're going to boil it down to 1 season and we'll reevaluate at the end. The problem with that is you weren't good. And you haven't been good. So while you're in that situation, what does 1 year look like? So far, it looks like matching your win total from last season very early. FAMU had 4 conference victories. They had 6 wins in total. Well, now as you step into this year, it's a little bit different for them. Things look a whole lot brighter for them. They have 4 conference wins already, and there's a lot of conference play left. And then also they have 7 wins instead of 6. So FAMU currently sits at 7-11 while they only won 6 games last year. For Patrick Crarey, the conversation becomes two-sided. One, you only got a 1-year contract and they took down a 3-year contract. They said, okay, for Patrick Crarey, you gave me a contract. She left. You took that contract away and you boiled it down to 1 year. I could argue that there's a lack of trust there. That's one side of it. On the other side is FAMU. You wanted to see something in a season. What exactly does he need to prove? Because if it's a 8-9 win conference record, are you feeling good? If it doesn't sustain right now, because right now you're on a 4-game winning streak. If it doesn't sustain all the way out, how hard are we criticizing him? Are we saying, no, we still think somebody can take it to the promised land? Does he have to have an undeniable season? I think for Patrick Crarey, Honestly, I think for both sides, Patrick Crarey, Coach Crarey, and then also for FAMU, this is a very difficult situation. And the better that they play without being elite makes it more difficult. If you're a great team, then FAMU saying, oh, he's led us to a very quick turnaround. We want you here. But then Patrick Crarey has to decide, yo, do I actually feel like there's a trust here? Do I feel disrespected by the fact that you took away my contract and gave me this? I think that these are legitimate questions. So I know it seems a little bit early, but right now you're looking at a team with 4 victories. They won 4 games in a row. They have a player who in Milton Matthews who just got awarded with the Impact Player of the Week. He had 2 back-to-back big games. Right. So versus Jackson State and Alcorn, and they won 4 games in a row. You have Sterling Young, who's averaging 15 a pop. He hasn't scored under 17 points since the first game of conference play. So you're looking at a duo that has promise. You're looking at a coach that I know 4 wins isn't like, oh my God, or anything like that. He's 4-3 though. I think that's important. You're currently 5th in the conference. And here goes the crux of it all. For FAMU, it was a 1 year. For FAMU, you boiled him down to 1 season. And he said, or excuse me, for FAMU, you boiled it down to 1 season. And you basically told him, you got to show us so much in this year to make us want to come back to the negotiation table. Now, what if he shows you so much that somebody else has interest and he feels disrespected? I think that we're really entering that territory because there was a fear he would just be bad. And you would be like, okay, well, 1 year, he's bad. We're out of here. An unfair season to him. But he came in and he's not bad. He's already matched your win total, surpassed it in the overall. Where do we go from here? I'm just saying. Excuse me. I'm just saying. I think in general, it makes it a very difficult conversation. So that's my view of FAMU and their men's basketball situation. We'll watch it. They're only 7 games in. There are 7 games in to the conference season, and he's 4-3. Now, if we get 20 games in and all of a sudden he's 15-5, okay, different conversation. But I think that I tried to hit all of the bases, and I think I did. He's not going to be bad. I highly doubt they're going to bottom out now. If he's just slightly above average, I think it makes it really interesting to see what you do with him. If he's really good, I think it makes it very interesting to see what he does with you. Because at the end of the day, I don't think that it was a burnt bridge by what you did to him, but I do believe that that was disrespectful. I do believe that it was unfair. I believe putting a singular season on him, like the selling point of why you did it, it was BS. Like it wasn't good. I didn't buy it, but it's the game. It's the business, right? If Crarey really loves it there, he'll probably overlook it. If he doesn't, something to really start talking about. Speaking of something that's really time to start talking about, how about Texas Southern? I think that they've earned top dog status. I know it's early and it's not permanent, but I think that they've earned top dog status in SWAC women's basketball. Let's explore that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Now, Texas Southern was not supposed to be anywhere near the top of the Southwestern Athletic Conference in women's basketball. They weren't. TSU was not supposed to be anywhere near as good as they are. We're talking about 7 games into the season, and they are the only undefeated team in conference play. Okay. That's my Lady Tigers now, right? But I think that if TSU was 7-0 at any point in conference play, you would probably assume that they're playing a bunch of the worst teams. But that's not the case. That is not the case. You look at the top of the conference. Southern is second place, tied with Jackson State for 6-1. Do you know who the one is in both of those? It's Texas Southern. TSU is the team that has beaten JSU and Southern. You look at Alabama A&M at fourth. They're 5-2. The only two teams that they've lost to is Jackson State and TSU. Grambling is 4-3. TSU beat them too. So you're looking at TSU has knocked off the top 5 teams or top 4, the rest of the top 5, and they're number 1. I said this coming into the season. That crown was up for grabs, right? Like, I know many people were a little bit like, what? No, that's not fair. And when I say many people, I really mean Jackson State fans, because I said Jackson State has to go fight for the crown just like everybody else is now that Coach Reed is gone. Because to me, it's a completely different situation. It's a completely different team. I did not believe that the crown lived, and I die on this hill. I'm fine with it, because to me, Jackson State winning changes nothing. Like, I'm a stubborn person at heart, to be honest, and this wasn't going to change it. To me, Jackson State lost the benefit of the doubt of saying, they're the team to beat. There is no team to beat. There was no team to beat going into the season. In my opinion, there was not a legitimate, the crown lives here going into the SWAC season for women's basketball. That was given up when Coach Reed left. So everybody's fighting. It's now a Royal Rumble to see who gets that top title. Right now, it has to be Texas Southern. And that's strange to say, but I think that they're no longer a surprise. There's no longer this team that's like, oh, man, they're doing better than we expected. We're 7 games in, and they knocked off all the best teams. What else would they have to do to earn top dog status? Now, here's the thing. This is not me saying that they are going to end the season as the best. We still got a lot to look for. And quite frankly, I understand the skepticism. I understand the hesitancy. But to me, I kind of feel like Texas Southern, 7 games in, has the temporary crown. We'll see what happens when they play Jackson State again. Jackson State held them to their worst fourth quarter, and that was impressive because TSU has actually been a pretty good fourth quarter team as you look through them, right? Let's see what game I have them all kind of like written right here. You see versus Alabama A&M, 22 points. One thing that the offense comes alive in the fourth quarter a lot, but sometimes the defense is a little bit, it's not as strong in the fourth to close things out. But you look against Valley, 24 points in the fourth quarter. You look against Grambling. Grambling scored 30 points in the fourth quarter. TSU scored 23. But still, TSU won that game by 11. You're looking at it. Now, this game against Alabama A&M, or excuse me, this game against Alabama State is very similar to the one against Southern. Very similar to the one against Southern. But in Southern, that's when the fourth quarter, that was their best fourth quarter. Against Southern, that was TSU's best fourth quarter, offensively and defensively. You score 27 points. You hold Southern to just 8, and you end up winning by 9. So you look at that. That's a 19-point edge. You end up winning by 4 points. So now that's a what? You came back from a 15-point deficit in that game? That in this game versus Alabama State were the only 2 times that TSU actually trailed in the fourth quarter in this winning streak. They've won 7 games in a row now in SWAC play. To me, this is a team that showcased a little bit of battle-testedness, for lack of a better term. They've shown the ability to close. There we go. They've shown the ability to close. They've shown the ability to show it when they need to. Courtlynn Loudermill is one of the better scorers in the conference, now ranked at 5th points per game in the SWAC. We have to have a conversation. I know we were looking towards Jackson State. I know we were looking towards Alabama A&M. I do believe that having those coaches with established, I know we were looking towards Grambling. I think having those established coaches makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, it's Coach Skeet. At the same time, it's Texas Southern. At the same time, it's undefeated. We'll see what happens, but they've taken on a lot of the big dogs. They've taken on a lot of big punches. JSU, they held TSU to 6, but they only scored 16. So that's when the defense had to come in to not rub insult to injury, but to steal a Jackson State football term, defense. When the offense isn't rolling, the defense has to turn it on. When the defense isn't rolling, the offense has to turn it on. And we've seen that. Against Grambling, the defense was poor. 30 points. 30 points in the second half or in the fourth quarter. Against against Jackson State, they only scored 6. So now the defense has to hold strong. We've seen them win in a multitude of ways. I would argue that Southern game is special, man. 27 points. That means going into that, you had 28. Yeah, 28 points going in. So all in all, TSU, Courtlynn Loudermill, Aaliyah Fontroy, you have so many players on this team who have stepped up. Alasia Fontroy and then Aaliyah Henderson. I don't know any other way to put it. They have achieved top dog status, and I hope as an alum, almost as an alma mater, but as an alum, I can only hope that my alma mater keeps it up. TSU men's basketball has been where it's at for a long, long, long time. I would say that TSU women's basketball has been struggling for a while as well. They've been struggling. So it's nice to see both of these teams actually rising up, because I remember the Joyce days. I think I got there for a year, Joyce, maybe 2. At the Nia Mitchell days, like we had some teams, but as of lately, it ain't been that. Coach Skeet, year 3, TSU top dogs through 7 games. Let's see if they can keep it going, keep it steady. I'll be looking forward to their games against Southern, specifically because of that big comeback in that game. It'll be in Baton Rouge. I'll be looking towards Jackson, and I'll be looking towards Alabama A&M. But in the meantime, in between time, tomorrow, we'll be back. It's Jackson State versus Grambling in Las Vegas. I'm going to tell you why I think that this is important and slightly related to the whole Philadelphia, Norfolk State versus Delaware State proposition that Deshaun Jackson had, because I do think that these things relate. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.